Gentlemen, first off, welcome to TrendAI, okay? Welcome.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a couple questions, but we are on a timer here, okay?
Yep.
So, yeah, there might be a little pressure. AI speeding things up, including our responses, okay? Because we have a jam-packed afternoon, okay?
Sounds good.
Now, my first question, maybe I ask over to Johnny. You sat on the buyer side for years. What challenges have you seen from that perspective that the industry wasn't solving fast enough?
Ooh, well, I think that probably from a security program perspective, I think the number one challenge is getting through the tool sprawl or the fragmentation that happens so much. As practitioners, we're obsessed with visibility, gaining visibility, making sure that we have full coverage. And then what ends up happening is in that obsession, we actually buy too many tools. And that tool sprawl is kind of like, we really drive that problem. And it's hard to move into, a single vendor to manage all of those solutions.
Yeah, what about Tony? Like from your perspective, what have we not solved in the industry? From practitioners at your former organization, what have we not been solving in a simplistic way fast enough?
The number one thing that we've struggled, I mean, you guys should have at least some awareness, is visibility. The business is moving faster every day, and with AI now being in the forefront, they're doing things without you guys knowing. So as soon as you think you have a handle of what's going on, some new 5 things pop up in marketing or pop up in manufacturing or pop up in with leadership. So really for you guys, it's been visibility. This is the one thing that we've lacked for a very, very long time.
Yeah, we don't make it simple enough. How do we get visibility easier, quicker?
Yes, way easier.
Yeah. Brent, what's your perspective?
Yes, yeah. As a CTO, one of the things that was so interesting to me was when we heard from a vendor, it was really complexity being masqueraded as capability. And so we would get these beautiful demos. We'd be told, hey, this is how it's going to work. We would absorb and consolidate, integrate, tune, all on our own. And so what ended up happening is you lost that trusted partnership on the vendor side. And there's only a few great partners out there that would really come in and make sure that your environment was set up well. And again, we had 184 plus pieces of tech in the environment. You couldn't do it all on your own. You needed to find that platform and that partner to deal with.
Yeah, nice. I hope some of these resonate with the audience here as some of these challenges. But let me pivot a little bit from some of those expectations and that buyer's journey to maybe a little bit of AI. And so maybe, Tony, I got a question for you, okay? What concerns you more with the rise as we're in this agentic AI era? Is it the attackers or is it the speed at which we see AI adoption in organizations without governance?
It goes back to my first comment. I mean, you guys have been in boardrooms. You guys have been in with leaders. You understand FOMO. Earlier we had a guest speaker that mentioned that. That's a real thing. Executives, especially in the CEO space, are really, really worried about being behind their competitor. Whether it be you're selling tires, you're selling clothing, you're in the healthcare, they're worried about being left out because somebody else used AI in order to move forward. So generally what they do is they come back and they go, well, they're going to weigh the risk. They're going to go, what happens if I get compromised, or what happens if I make another $100 million on the bottom line? So they're driving the business to move more AI and use it faster. Because one, for them, it's profit, but then two, it's also for them on the back end of saving the workforce, just like was mentioned earlier today. So again, I think that's the one thing that really surprised me the most. Attackers, you deal with attackers every day. Yes, that's going to get faster, but the willingness from the business to accept risk earlier on changed. Now it's more of them trying to get ahead of their own competitors versus actually solving the risk up front. They're being more reactive to the industry versus being proactive.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. What's your take, Brent? What do you think? What is the biggest risk, the underestimated risk in the AI era?
Well, we talked about visibility, but I think also what ends up happening is, well, how do you prioritize that risk? Without prioritization in this AI era, it's hard to tell, like when you have so much input coming into your systems, so much vulnerability, the attack surface continues to grow. And so our teams, from a security perspective, need to know, what do we handle first? We need to know, like, how do we quantify the risk that's coming in? Because we want to be an enabler. We don't want to be the boulder that got dropped into the stream and everyone's diverting around us. We want to find out, like, what do we focus on first and make sure that we can help everyone to push forward as we continue to adopt AI throughout the organization.
Yeah, I love it. And Johnny, you shared something earlier today that I love this story, because you see this dynamic all the time where you have the business need to move fast, the security and the governance required to balance that without risk. And I love the story about the brakes. These aren't here to slow you down. They're here so you can go fast. And I think that's what AI Fearlessly is all about. But what's your take? What is the risk? What's the bigger risk? What is the unseen risk today for customers adopting AI?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we talk a lot about the excitement, if you will, around innovation. So there's motivation there. I think we individually want to kind of upskill ourselves. But one of the big challenges in the marketplace with AI adoption and tools is not only are the tools changing, but the scale and rate of which our people are using them is changing as well. So, in the old enterprise era, you would go out, you would look at a vendor, you would go through the whole process, you'd make sure it's a good fit, you do all of these things. But in the AI era, your users are going around you, and I jokingly talk about it like ice cream, right? Like, I like mint chocolate chip, and a lot of people don't. It's the same thing with a lot of these AI models. What they end up doing,
Mint chocolate chip?
Exactly. It's my favorite. We could go around the room and be like, I love chocolate, I love vanilla, I love this. And it's happening with all of these AI tools. So there's a need and a flavor where people go like, oh, I love Claude. No, I don't like Claude, I like this. And so your users are going out and experimenting, and that's a huge exposure because it's really hard to get that visibility. You have to start with a governance framework that can give you visibility, because you can't protect what you can't see. And as exciting as that one tool is, tomorrow they're going to drop that tool and go to another one. And now you have a whole nother attack path coming in.
Yeah. This is a great segue to my question for Brent.
Okay. More about ice cream, huh?
It's not about ice cream, okay? I don't know what your favorite flavor of ice cream. Maybe we could find out, okay? What is your favorite flavor of ice cream? No, I'm just kidding, Brent. Hi. So we talked about the visibility. What would you do if you found someone on your team was uploading sensitive data to a public LLM?
Well, you're giving me a little PTSD when you talk about the situation. This has probably been one of the biggest security risks that we've had across our organizations for years now, because we have shadow behavior, shadow AI, right? It's no longer shadow IT, it's about what's happening and what's moving through. And when someone's using AI, we want to be competitive. We want to enable our teams to be able to leverage AI to become more productive. So if some well-intentioned person, it sounds like in this scenario, decided that they wanted to leverage AI, but they've left sensitive information out there, or they pushed it out. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that I would do in our organization is we would enact our data loss prevention plan. So we would really say, what's our response plan going forward? Which means we're going to identify what information was sent out, what LLM did they use, what model they use, is that a public endpoint, or is that an internal on-premise enterprise tenant solution that we're utilizing? And then from there, I have to hold back from saying that we're going to block that LLM going forward, probably as we're all starting to think maybe that's our first gut reaction. Do we block the access to that tool that we now have compromised information out there or exposure to? But we don't want to do that. Again, remember the stream analogy. Dropping that boulder in the stream, they're going to go around. And so how do we reevaluate what that tool is, and is it really essential in our environment?
Yeah.
And then going after that, it's more about now tooling. So how do we quickly look at the tooling that we have out there, do our due diligence, and say these are the approved sanctioned tools, put guardrails in place to make sure that we have, let's say, an agentic governance gateway that everything can pass through, so we know what information is going in and out. It can be really redacted, so we don't end up with sensitive information leaving the confines of the building or the enterprise. And then last, how do we train and enable them to be able to use AI in a safe way going forward?
Yeah, that's great. Tony, and by the way, PTSD, is this too soon to ask that question? Or I'm sorry about that.
We see it a lot. We see it a lot in our space. It's
okay.
happening all the time, unfortunately.
Yeah. So sorry. Okay. Johnny, what's your take?
It's a tough one. I mean, if we're being honest, I'll give a shout out to Ashish Rajan. We did a podcast about this, and he had a very hot take, and he said, essentially made the comment that you're already breached and you're not really being honest about it, right? So if you don't have visibility in that plane, you're kind of putting your head in the sand and pretending it's not happening. And I've heard organizations, it's a scary thing. I've talked to security leaders where they told me, like, we really trust our employees. And I'm like, that sounds good until your employees upload all of your IP and do the wrong things, right? And so it's normally the well-intentioned folks that can cause the most damage. So from my side, it's like gaining immediate visibility and understanding. A great point to what Brent talked about. I think that if you really want good behavior, you should reward and train good behavior. So you want to encourage your teams to use the tools, show them how to use the tools responsibly, make sure that you understand where they can run fast and where they need to slow down. And a lot of that comes back to more of the human factor. You have to have that close relationship, with your employees, with your users, so that you can empower them. But you have to have visibility, because if you can't see it, you can't protect it.
Yeah, this challenge is, the intentions are positive here, right? This isn't a data exfiltration from a rogue employee, for instance. This is actually, hey, I'm trying to get things done faster. I just so happen to exfiltrate data in doing so by sharing it publicly and irresponsibly. Yeah, so visibility, love it. Tony, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, if AI basically exposed everybody's decision making. There are moments where you're going in, you're building in, you got your budget going, you're building out your security stack, you're looking at your controls. But let's just say that the company decided not to go spend money in data security, right? Or spent less money in a PAM solution for identity. AI exposes this ultimately in the end. If I were to sit back today and look at it, I basically would say, go back and look at your data foundations, go look at the things that AI actually needs, which is access control, your data maturity, and really in a nutshell, I'll give you a better example. When I was with my former company, we had a financial person create a document, and they created a document, and it was a spreadsheet to kind of justify salaries. For executives. This really did happen. Salaries for executives. Well, guess what? They didn't put the access control on right. So when we got Copilot for the first time and somebody got curious and typed in some stuff, well, guess what happened? All the Copilot pulled everybody's salary up and showed it on the screen. Now, it was a big blunder by our finance team, right? But if we would have had the proper controls in place to implement that ultimately in the end, that shouldn't have been a problem, right? It should have required them to do something other than everyone, right? We should have made them, assign it to the right people to move forward. So it's the little things like that. It's the small things that ultimately will get you in the end. And you'll find out that, you're not going to be able to stop AI. You're not going to be able to contain it. You're not going to be able to say we're not using it at all. Your vendors are using it. Your teammates are using it. You're using it. Executives are using it. You have to enable it, but you need to go back and look at foundations of security and what really is your core of your framework in order to move forward.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. I know we're pressed for time, so I have one last closing question here. And there was a great question earlier today from the audience. They asked for hey, 10 years from now, what will you look back at this moment? Don't worry, I'm only going to go 5 years, okay? 5 years from now. And what'll be the difference between organizations that embraced AI and leveraged it to become more resilient, maybe from a cybersecurity perspective, versus those that became more exposed because of their AI usage, right? And maybe sometimes, as you just stated, unintentionally, because they just happen to be using tools.
Yeah, I would say that in 5 years, if you were at a reflection point, think about where you are right now. 2 years ago, everybody was waiting for the industry to tell you what to do. And the industry waited. And then as soon as they actually published something, it was already obsolete. That's been part of the problem, is that AI is moving so fast. Even if we were to give a framework or even if we give guidance, by the time you got it and by the time you implemented it, it was already obsolete. So if I was looking at it right now, I basically would say the decisions you make today dictate your future. If you decide to wait, you're going to repercussion that later on. You need to go find the right partner, the right solutions, and the right controls in order to do that. If you wait and take too long, it will bite you in about 3 or 4 years. Because by then, your business is going to be so far advanced in AI, it's not going to be feeling like it's giant technical debt on your end.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe over to Brent, maybe.
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, so 5 years from now, it's hard to imagine. I mean, just in the last 6 months, we've already seen the explosion. And even, I was talking to a few customers last night where they were talking about just on the plane ride over, 4 new advancements in AI technology and just how far we're propelling the space. But if you think about like the divergence, what's gonna happen in 5 years between the companies that are gonna stay resilient and the companies that are gonna get more exposure to risk, it's really all about, are you operationalizing and making sure you have the right safeguards in place of your organization and bringing it into your working model within your workflow of your organization. The companies that don't, the companies that continue to have poor data hygiene, that don't have the safeguards and controls in place, or that don't have the proper training and acknowledgement of like where they need to take the tooling, those are the teams that are going to suffer. Obviously, we talked about like data in, bad data out. But what's even more concerning is that as you start to look at the data that's happening with AI, it accelerates how bad the data actually is in your environment if you cannot train your models and leverage it well. So data hygiene, making sure you have the good operational controls and safeguards in place, and then making sure your tooling and training with your teams is well approved and your company knows how to move forward together.
Yeah, I love, and the speed is of course undeniable. I heard Rob say this earlier from Anthropic, and I think this 5-year time horizon I really like. I think about my own usage of AI. I bought a self-driving car 4 years ago. I hit take me to my destination, and it was like a drunken 13-year-old. I thought, I didn't think I was gonna make it, all right? Constant interventions, but now, a few years later, I hit a button, the thing will take me 100 miles away without any intervention at all. And so, yeah, the time it is coming fast, and it's gonna go from this early stage to advanced stage very quickly, and we need to address it. So, Johnny, and we're almost pressed for time, so Johnny.
Yep. I would say, I think my challenge to you for looking at a 5-year roadmap is rethink the way that your organization needs to be aligned. This idea that you can bolt on AI and be okay is completely wrong. You have to reorganize your workflows and the things that you're doing, which means the structure of your company needs to change. And in 5 years from now, you'll see companies that are centered around the AI capabilities they have. They didn't bolt on the technology.
Yeah, makes sense, makes sense. And any other advice, like when we talk about data hygiene, what's your definition of that? Like, what would be the number one recommendation to accomplish what we were just discussing?
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of a weird one, but you have to start through the lens of being honest, right? You have to take a look at your data. If you have data fragmented all around your organization in different, SQL databases, unstructured databases, data lakes, and all of that, and you're interacting with that with different tools, you have to be honest that, hey, I need to come up with a better process to centralize my data, and then actually go through your data and do that data hygiene. Maybe you need to go through and redact PII in that data sets because you don't need it anymore. Like that's like the ground truth step, is just being honest. Where is everything, and what do I need to do with that data?